Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and we got a full house today. We got Charles Fishbein, Fish, coming in from South Florida. He's got about 30 minutes to spend with us, I think. You still got 30, Fish?
Yeah, I'm growing out the beard like them until FSU wins their next game, so I'll probably be pretty bushy.
We'll see.
We're gonna be mountain men, Fish. It's gonna be a damn long time.
No, just so you know, Fish. Just so you know, Fish, I don't think we're going to count Charleston Southern. So,
all right. So you're saying I'm going to be shaving this after the FSU spring game, so we'll win that one.
No, they don't play a spring game; they do a showcase. So
showcase. So it'll be
at the very earliest, it'll be after the Alabama game.
They'll be Bama. Come on, let's not.
What was that? What was that reality show with all those?
I said after the Alabama game. I said at the very earliest.
What was that show with like all of those? It was like they were like duck hunters or something, and they all had those really long. Yeah, we're gonna look like Duck Dynasty by this time next year, Fish. I hope you're ready.
Oh yeah, man.
Well, luckily for me, I still can't grow a beard, so
I'll grow it and I'll be great.
I don't have to worry about that. All right, so we got Kurt Weiler with us, Nick Carlisle, a lot to talk about, and Fish, you still have to leave us early because that will dictate where we start.
I'll try to get, I'll try to stay a little bit longer.
Right.
I got to go to like Moorhaven and go film a game.
All right. Well, we thought it was just going to be a boring every Thursday show where we talk a little bit about FSU Notre Dame. And, I know there's a lot less excitement about this game going on than there was coming into the season, obviously. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that it seems, at least for now, that Florida has decided to keep Billy Napier for at least one more season. Athletic Director Scott Strickland announced that today. And, of course, we have a lot of debates about this coming into the summer, going into the season, boys. And one of us is right, and three of us were wrong on that one so far. Now,
not done yet. I was just saying, you better not be taking a victory lap. You know how college sports work.
You better pump those brakes, man.
I'm jumping the shark.
Hey,
all I'm saying is we can get into it.
Hey,
no doubt Scott Strickland wants to keep Billy because if Billy's gone, Scott Strickland's gone.
Yeah, wait till Pat sees that third string quarterback. He may change his tune in a couple weeks, man.
Hey, I know, but for right now, I'm right. So we'll see. And then, of course, I think the biggest, besides that, because that is the big news today, because that was obviously there's been questions ongoing since even before preseason would they bring Coach Napier back, and for now they are. But the bigger impact could be what that does to Florida State's 2025 recruiting class. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But I want to start with Kurt. Kurt, you've been at practice all week. I think Nick was out there Tuesday. I was out there Wednesday. I know you talked with the Notre Dame writer for their website. Just what are your thoughts on this game, and how do you feel Florida State's prep went?
I mean, the prep, if I'm being honest, is how it's been really for the last few weeks. The offense not having a ton of success. I think you two up top can vouch to that. The 2 days you were out there, there were moments. I thought Brock, they had a pretty nice 1 minute drill on Wednesday. They always do like a 1 minute drill in the first team period, and then a field goal got blocked and returned for a touchdown. It kind of sums everything up pretty well. But I think this is of all the matchups of late. I mean, this might be the worst matchup. I mean, Mike Norvell and Adam Fuller spent some time this week kind of talking about a question about kind of the consistency of the physicality Florida State played with in that North Carolina game. And this is a Notre Dame team that is their bread and butter. I mean, they want to run the ball. They want to be physical in the trenches. In that regard, I mean, none of the matchups have been especially good lately for Florida State, but this one seemed particularly bad.
Yeah, when you start breaking down what they do on offense, Kurt, particularly in the run game, when they played Boston College and North Carolina and teams like that, those were inside run teams, big, heavy inside run teams. The thing that is going to stress this Florida State defense is Notre Dame really doesn't have a preference where they run the ball. They hit the outside as much as they hit the inside. And to be honest with you, it's just about who's getting the ball when it goes in a certain direction. The running backs run between the tackles. The quarterback runs outside the tackles. And it's the hit chart on their runs is pretty amazing. Outside left runs 46 for 426. Outside right runs which is outside the tight end, 46 runs for 314 yards. Those are mostly quarterback runs or runs that break outside, obviously. And then when you look at middle left and middle right runs, which are runs between the guard and center, 35 to 22 left to right, and then obviously they run the ball between the guard and tackle some to the extent 32 to the left, 22 to the right. So, Florida State's defense will be stressed that way. It was not stressed that way against North Carolina. Criswell was not going to keep the ball very often. In fact, most of his plays with his feet were in scramble situations. So defensively, obviously, Florida State, I think, is going to be stressed in a different way in the run game than it has all season. And obviously, this team, like most teams, is a little bit beat up. So I think it's going to be an incredibly hard challenge for the defense. And listen, we didn't get to see a healthy Riley Leonard last year. We're going to get a chance to see one this year. And I'm, listen, that is, as far as the game is concerned, I am looking to see, what kind of football player he is. You don't get to watch full games of other teams when you cover college football, unless you're going to go back and watch the condensed versions and all that. But yes, and they don't want to throw the ball a tremendous amount, but they are deep at receiver. Not as deep as some of the teams Florida State has played, but yeah, I think defensively it's going to be a big challenge for Florida State. And then offensively, it's every game's a big challenge.
Do we have to say it? I mean, do we have to say it?
They're top 5 in scoring.
Punt the ball on first down.
They're top 5 in scoring defense. I mean, it's probably the best defense they've played this year.
Punt the ball on first down.
Yeah,
there've been plenty of bad defenses that they've struggled to generate much against. So
they're eighth in scoring defense, fourth in scoring defense, 8th in total defense, 44th in rushing defense, 4th in pass defense. Now, what they don't do a ton is make disruptive plays. Now that may change this week, unfortunately, but they're 113th in TFLs and 54th in sacks. And of course, the other problem FSU has is they're 11th in third down defense. And we know just what we see on a weekly basis that Florida State's going to find itself in third down a tremendous amount of time. And then I think the other problem they got, guys, is this is a Notre Dame defense that's really, really deep. They are deep. They have I can't remember what the number. They got like five or six guys on the defensive line, meaning ends and tackles that have played well over 100 snaps. They might have the best linebacker core that Florida State has seen this season. They send those guys in and out. Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, Kingston Villamu Asa, and Jaden Osbury. They're tackling machines. The two will linebackers together, they play about 50-50, 73 tackles combined, and then almost the same thing with Bowen and Villamu Asa with almost 70 tackles between those two guys. And we haven't even started talking about the Rover, the strong safety linebacker type beside him. So, listen, I think it's going to be tough mudding for Florida State. I don't know, how they attack this defense. I think one of the things they could do, and we've been questioning why it hadn't happened all year, is give the ball to Lawrence Toafili 20 times instead of 8 or 9.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we've seen this offense struggle against pretty much every single defense that it's gone up against this entire season, except in some very, very niche situations. I'm not sure why LT isn't getting more snaps, especially with the injuries that have happened to Florida State in the running back room. You make a great point, Pat, in terms of just how not only the experience that this Notre Dame front seven has, including the linebackers, but just the overall depth and how they've been rotating this year and how effectively they've been doing that. I'm sure that's ideally like the type of rotation that Florida State wants to have, but they've had neither the depth this year nor the production, and now obviously they're missing guys. So I mean, it's they although they haven't taken a look at the schedule, they haven't quite faced somebody quite as strong as Texas A&M since they faced them the first week of the season, but they've just been routinely drumming offenses pretty much ever since then, apart from Louisville, which that was a couple of weeks ago. So it's no secret that this game is going to be offensively challenging for Florida State. It's just a matter of how bad it's going to get, to be honest with you.
I feel like I've said it for a few weeks now, but if ever there were a time for that turnover pendulum to still swing, I mean, the defense hasn't forced a turnover since the Cal game, September 21st. It'll be, by the time Saturday hits, it will have been 49 days since the FSU defense had a takeaway. They have 2 all year.
It's every time we throw another set up, it's just amazing. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They have not. Listen, and what's funny is, it's not funny. It's funny, sad, I guess. I listened to Freeman talk, and then on Monday, then I listened to Al Golden, their defense coordinator, talk on Tuesday, and they were asked, how do you keep this team from being complacent? You guys probably thought Florida State would come in as a ranked team. They're coming in 1-8, as opposed to 8-1 or something close to that. And they both on different days talked about, well, we reminded them of the Northern Illinois game. And so it's such a bad season that Florida State is being compared to probably their worst game of the year, Northern Illinois, who they lost to 16-14 coming off a Texas A&M win in the season opener. So they talked about how they've tried to remind the guys of that game and that feeling. And but to your point, Nick, it's not been a great schedule. They beat Texas A&M, lost to Northern Illinois, beat up on Purdue, little methodical win against Miami of Ohio, good contest against Louisville, obviously, who's one of the better teams in the ACC this year. Like everybody does, ran over Stanford, got after Georgia Tech a little bit, 31-13, and then killed Navy. But Navy just turned the ball over every time they got a chance. It's just, but you're right, they have not played a great game. And listen, we see it all the time in college football. Could Notre Dame come out and lay an egg like it did against Northern Illinois? We'll see. That's why we'll all be watching. I mean, we all watch with that element of hope. And so I think it's going to be interesting. Listen, we talk about, I know Bob likes to concentrate on player development once we got to, once the season was kind of written off as it's just going to be terribly bad. And, I will say this, you're going to have some players, particularly your 2 young guards, if Jalen Early and Andre Otto start, they're going to get an education on Saturday night, because Rodney Mills and Howard Cross are 2 very, very good defensive tackles. And so those kids, even though they may struggle in that performance, will come out there more educated than they were before. And I think that, I think there's a lot of ways to look at the rest of these games, Florida State's last 3 games in this season. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Kirk. When you start looking at the matchups, it does not bode well for Florida State. And, and I don't, and I think the thing that remains to be seen was what did last week, how did last week's loss, and it was a bad loss in North Carolina in every metric. You go back and look at it and break it down to how North Carolina played against other teams on their schedule. Some of Florida State stats against them, or lack of stats against them, really stand out. And, I think the big question I have going into this game is not whether Florida State will win or lose. It's, how competitive can they be, and how competitive will they want to be?
Well, and like the Miami game, I think this benefits them from a standpoint of it's going to be a game that limits possessions. Like, I mean, not to say Notre Dame can't hit explosives, but I think they're going to be perfectly content to run the ball down your throat and milk the clock and not feel threatened about, lessening the number of possessions in the game, which in theory should favor Florida State as a significant underdog. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty damning that what we were talking on Wednesday at practice, Pat, about the spread is around 26, 25 and a half. Yep. And the betting line is 42 or 42 and a half. So that, math that out, that's about a 34-8 final score they're projecting. I mean, that's does not speak well to how Florida State is being perceived at the moment anyway. Yeah,
and it's hard to argue against it, to be quite honest. I mean, I think right now, if you said, hey, 35-10, play the game in 3 hours, get on the plane, come back home, take a week off, get ready for Charleston Southern in Florida. Now, obviously, I will say this. I don't, and we could talk about I know, Kurt, you wrote an article on the lack of physicality. that was displayed by some individuals in the North Carolina game. But I will say this: I don't think as a collective group they quit against North Carolina. Now, here's the problem: once one guy is perceived to have quit or turned it down, everyone else is guilty by association. And I do think we saw some guys make some business decisions, and it's not the first time we've heard a former player who is a commentator talk about that with his football team. Mark Herzlich talked about it several times in the game against North Carolina. We've heard Lewis Reddick talk about it when he covered a game, and these guys aren't making this stuff up. And I think that what I'm hoping that they did get solved this week is if you're playing, you're playing. If you're not, you're on the bench. And let's get some of this these business decisions made this week before we go to Notre Dame. I don't know how it was addressed internally. I know it was the first time I can remember Mike and Adam specifically talking about it. What was your takeaway from that? What their comments on the lack of physicality?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike said something to the effect of what he say. It was something to the effect of, I don't think it was all the time. I think there were moments where it was up to standard, but it has to be up to standard all the time. And there are moments where it wasn't. I mean, I think when you're talking about the defense, I think you can talk about physicality being a problem on both sides of the ball. I think the blocking on offense hasn't exactly been great either.
Well, there's no doubt.
When you're looking at the defense, I think you can absolutely make a case, and whether this should happen or not, with how just the offense has been all season long. Just like it seems clear at this point the offense isn't improving this season. It sure feels like the defense started to weigh on the defense the last few weeks. I think 4 of the last 5 teams have run for 200 yards against Florida State. I think we all imagine that'll be 5 out of 6 after this weekend. And so I think it's just you're seeing that after they were able to, I thought, hold up okay for a while in the early going, as the offense has just continued to just be stuck in molasses. I think that's really started to drag the defense back with them a little bit. And it is so easy to say, like, we're not letting that affect us. And it's harder to, in practice, not let that affect you when it's this big a problem all season long.
Well, yeah, I mean,
the other problem is, sorry, Pat, is that a lot of the guys that you definitely saw make business decisions are guys that were here last year, are supposed to be leaders on this team, and are supposed to be leading the way for some of the younger guys like Juice Cryer, who unfortunately got hurt in the North Carolina game, who have shown the not only the desire to win, but the hunger for this program to improve moving forward. So it's really disappointing from the standpoint of, like, you have, and I'm not going to name names, but if you go back and you watch the tape, you know who it is.
Oh yeah.
These guys that were part of the ACC championship winning team last year that have mailed it in with 4 games to go and have very, very clearly either out of frustration or a lack of desire are not only letting Mike down, but they're letting the younger guys that they're supposed to be mentoring down. And it's not impressive at all.
And if they've got aspirations of playing after they leave Florida State, they've let themselves down, because NFL scouts, the first thing they're going to look at on that. And listen,
and there have been a lot of scouts at practice too, so it's like not to mention at the game. So,
well, listen,
you can't hide the lack of effort. You can't hide it.
No, everything's on film, and you wish players would film and television. But yeah, and listen, and we talked about this. I'll go back to Kurt's point first. Does it affect the defense the way the offense's inability to score? Yes. Players can do math. They can figure it out. Once we get down by so many points, it's almost impossible for us to come back, and that's just the way it is. I mean, these kids are smart enough to figure out the trends, and I know Mike said it shouldn't matter. You still got to go out and play on your side of the ball, and that's kind of
but the defense, you brought it up with the turnovers. The defense isn't helping the offense out. Right. Where are the turnovers? Where's the short fields? Where is the extra possessions for the offense? So, they're not doing their part. These are team losses. So the offense isn't good. The defense ain't that good either.
There's no synergy. No. They talked about this week how many times this year. And Nick, you called this Saturday night, sitting up in the press box there Saturday afternoon. How many times this year when the offense goes down and scores a touchdown, does the defense like Nick before that drive, right after Brock threw that great touchdown to Ja'Kai, said first play is going to be a 45-yard run. And it was a 43-yard run plus a horse collar tackle. So it ended up being like almost 60 yards.
I should go run the lottery real quick, fellas. I should go run the lottery.
No,
well, listen, they don't.
It's losing football all around.
Yeah, they don't leverage momentum. If after they took the lead 3-0, they gave up a 50-yard kickoff return, which they got lucky. Well, they didn't get lucky. They earned a stop down on the goal line, but it ultimately led to a short field because Florida State was 4 and out on that next series, got out to the 19, but North Carolina took over right around the their own 45-yard line and scored a touchdown to make it 7-3. So this is what bad football teams do. They don't leverage momentum, and this team has not all year. So listen, it's going to be a hard road to hoe in South Bend. It's going to be a night game. Luckily, it's not going to be that cold. I think the temperatures are supposed to be in the 50s, and the rain that they had projected for Saturday in South Bend looks like it's kind of pushed back to Sunday. We'll see. I know they're supposed to get rain Saturday night late. Go ahead, Kurt.
I just cross my fingers for that. Someone who will be there. Even if I'm sitting in the press box, I can cross my fingers that I'm not dealing with rain.
The thing I like about trips to Notre Dame is how they greet you at the stadium with the ushers that meet you with the coats and ties on and tell you where the press box is and how to get there. It's a neat experience, and I've only been there once, and we played them when I was at South Florida and upset them, actually. I told that story on I was trying to buck Mark up a little bit on Saturday night or Monday night whenever we did our show because he's down the dumps. And I said, well, you never know. And I said, that's why they play the game. And so we should not. The year we played them, which I believe was 2010, they started off, marched right down the field, got to the 1-yard line, and the running back fumbled going into the end zone. It popped into Kayvon Webster's hand. We got a 100-yard touchdown return, and we had fluky stuff like that happen all game long. Ended up winning 26-21, I think. So anyway, weird things can happen. We'll see what happens, but listen, I think it's going to be like all these games for Florida State this year. It's going to be a challenge, and we'll see how it goes. But we will be there. Kurt will be in South Bend to cover it. Nick and Bob will cover it from here, and we'll have our after. I think Fish is going to join us on Saturday night for the post-game show, but we'll have our regular post-game show. But we did want to talk a little bit about Notre Dame, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about Florida State recruiting because there's some things going on, may or may not be going on with the quarterback commit Tramell Jone. There was a prediction made by another recruiting service that he was going to flip to Florida. So we're going to tell you what we found out about that since that report broke. And we've got some updated information that I think will have Florida State fans a little bit less concerned about that. And then we'll also talk about Daniel Pierre-Louis. But we'll be back in about 45 seconds. We'll talk a little bit more about Florida State recruiting, and hope you'll join us when we come back.
Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
All right, we are back with the second half of Thursday's Seminole Sidelines, and Kurt has left us. I thought he might want to stick around and talk about Billy Napier, but we still have Fish and we still have Nick, so we'll be good with that. All right, guys. So some news we were not expecting to get today was the email that Scott Strickland sent out. And for whatever reason, I actually get those University of Florida emails. I signed up for something years ago and So I got it before.
He's a Florida fan. I knew it.
Yeah, he's a quiet Gator fan, man. He's a quiet.
No. You're a quiet Miami fan. Pat's a quiet Gator fan. Am I the only real Seminole here? I'm starting to question. These are the questions that the chat deserves to have answered.
Well, you know what? I am a Florida State fan. I want the Gators to be just good enough that it's fun to beat them. So now Miami,
I agree with.
Now Miami, I want to be 0-12 all the time. But
I also agree with that.
The Gators, I like it better when they're 8-4ish and we're beating them. So I don't pull for them. I just hope that they're good enough that when we beat them, it's fun to brag about it. And as opposed to beating a not so good Florida team. But of course, this year we'll take a Florida win against Florida any way we can get it. So it did break today that Napier was going to be retained for 2025 by Athletic Director Scott Strickland. And of course, about 30 seconds after that happened, there was a prediction made by another recruiting service. And to be honest with you, I don't remember it was On 3 or 247. I really, I pay attention to what they say, not who says it as far as the organization. But they said that Tramell Jone, they predicted that FSU quarterback commit Tramell Jones was going to flip or is considering flipping to Florida. And of course, our little staff text thread blew up, and we're all trying to figure out what happened because Nick, you spoke to him on Saturday or Sunday.
These kids, I'm already losing my hair, Pat. These kids are going to make me lose the rest of it by the time I'm 30. So we got 3 years to go. It's going to be, yeah.
Yeah. So, and everything he said to Nick, if you join us on Tuesday, Nick kind of recapped that conversation. But basically, he was the leader of the class and was still leading this class and trying to make sure that they kept the other 10 commitments together. And we actually went down the list on Tuesday and talked about who we may or may not be worried about. And about the only guy we actually had a question mark on was Kevin Wynn, because he's being recruited by several schools, including Texas and Georgia, and they have not slowed down. But so I was a little bit surprised when I saw the Tramell Jones prediction. Now, obviously, we have sources, and I have talked to 2 people since that came out. And now one thinks that it could happen as early this weekend. And as I told people on our board, I am taking that with a grain of salt because he has a rooted interest in where Tramell ends up in January. And so I think his information is generally accurate. He does have a pulse on what's going on with Florida recruiting. But I did talk to another source who does not have a dog in this fight on either side of the equation. And his understanding was that Florida has continued to pursue Jones pretty aggressively, as they should. Listen, they're still in the market for a quarterback, and they've been on him since for at least 2 years. And the second source's understanding of what was going on was that Tramell Jones's family is keeping a close eye on the developments that are going to take place after this season is over on Mike Norvell's coaching staff. That they want to know who is going to be developing his son, and that they want to know who's going to come back from the staff, who is not going to come back from the staff, and see how that affects how they feel about Tramell's long-term future at Florida State. And my understanding is that he has a very strong relationship with Tony Tokarts. What we don't know is this totally Tony Tokarts related, or is it related to the entirety of the offensive staff? What other questions does this family have? Because listen, if you had a quarterback that was getting ready to come to Florida State, I think it would only be, I think if I had a son, I would be interested in 2 things. Are you going to change anything on the offensive side of the ball from a staff standpoint? And what does that mean from a style of play standpoint? And exactly who is going to be coaching not only my son, but the players around that are going to be there to protect my son. So, the second source said this was not a done deal yet. He thought that the family was just weighing their options and keeping their mind open because of what's going on around the Florida State program and the fashion in which they are losing is not good for recruiting, obviously. But guys, what do y'all start? Fish, I'll start with you. What do you think?
As far as Tramell, I think that the kid's a good quarterback. He's coming off an injury, and honestly, I think they have bigger needs than him. So I feel this kid's been flirting with Florida for a while. I think the coaches should have pulled the plug a while ago. The quarterback's supposed to be the guy, the foundation of your class. And I just don't like when somebody's constantly flirting with another team at that position. If you're going to go, just go already and let FSU move on, because the longer they wait, it's going to be harder and harder for them to replace them. There's replacements out there, but give them the option of being able to go get them now. We saw this with Sam Howell when he recruited all the way to the end, and then he decided to not go to Florida State, that it set them back at that position for a year. Florida State, I believe you need to sign one. I would even sign 2 quarterbacks every year anyway, especially if you're going to 105. You can never have enough of these guys. So I would tell the kid and whoever's, basically representing them, hey, good luck, have fun in Gainesville, and I'd go recruit somebody else at this point.
Yeah, Nick, and we're going to come back to you about who they should recruit, Fish. But Nick, what are your thoughts on what's going on with Tramell, and how do you compare and contrast what's being reported to what he told you on Saturday night?
Yeah, the timing is really weird on this one, Pat, and that's what I think bothers me the most, because I believe that probably I would say after the Duke and Miami losses is probably when the smoke about staff changes was probably at its peak. That's when I would guess, the conversation is going to start to be had with the coaching staff, specifically from Mike, and I would assume Derek Rayon, and communicating with recruits, okay, who's potentially going to be leaving, who's potentially going to be going, and that's led to some of these other recruits like Wynn, like Lofton, like Wiley, who just committed to Georgia yesterday, for them to explore their options and commit elsewhere if they wanted to, because they know who's staying and who's going. To have Tramell, who to your point is the leader of this class, to have this come out now after he made the point to tell not just me, but every single recruiting service that was out there on Saturday that he was still completely shut down. He had confidence in Mike. To have this come out is a little bit weird to me. And just the way that this is all transpired, because if you recall, like, he is, to Fish's point, he had been flirting with Florida for a long time, especially over the summer or in the early spring, where he was down there a lot. And, there was the entire conversation with Antoine Hill. Will he, won't we? Is Florida State going to flirt with him and trying to get him in? Is Tramell going to move on? And essentially everything settled down and Florida State settled on Tramell. And now we're doing the same exact thing with Carter Smith, who is even more likely to not have any inkling of showing up on Florida State's campus. And guess what? Signing day's in 3 weeks. So the timing of everything is really weird to me. Something's fishy. Either something is not being said or something's being blown out of proportion. I don't know which way it is right now, but the timing is what bothers me the most, and especially with his comments the past few weeks. I mean, Tramell I know you're not. You want to contrast what the kid's saying versus what the kid's doing, right? For as long as Tramell has been strongly committed to this program, he has been very, very vocal more than once that he shut down his commitment for a reason and that he's loyal and all of that. And it's just if you repeat that for so long and then you come out and it's like, okay, you're potentially committing to another program. It's like, where's the cut in communication? You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. There's something here, and the timing is probably what bothers me the most.
I just think we've gone through this with Travis Hunter. You went with it, Bolden. At some point, stop getting burned by these kids. Like,
yes,
I get they have control, but you can't keep getting burned like this in recruiting, especially at the quarterback position. Like, learn your lesson. If a kid is not willing to just basically shut it down, and I'm talking really shut it down, not take visits, not talk, like, if he's not all FSU all the time, especially at that position. It's time to move on now. You got time. There's other bodies out there. There's other guys that have just as much talent. You got to make a run now, because if you go into signing day and that kid pulls the trigger, for a program that has a lot going wrong right now, I don't think that's a good look. I just don't. You got to not get stuck with your pants down like that.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think if, and this is again if, because obviously, Pat, your sources indicate this is not a done deal. This is very much kind of just beginning in this saga, so to speak. It's fluid, as all are things in Florida State recruiting right now. If Tramell goes to Florida after everything and after this entire season, to me, that's a huge indictment on the staff that's in place here right now. And of course, there's going to be changes or whatever, but you can't just keep getting burnt like that. And it's a testament to the state, to the state of Florida State recruiting. It would just not be a good look optically. That it's out of all the things that have optically looked bad this season, that's really, really bad for your head of your class to do that to you. Towards early signing.
And I say this knowing that it's not built on a sturdy foundation, but if you're Florida State, you can go in and sell that, hey, our coach is under contract a hell of a lot longer than theirs is. And there's now, both of them are going to have to win next year. There's no doubt about that. But you could also sell that, hey, there's no more guarantee that Billy Napier is going to be there for 5 years any more so than the head coach at Florida State may or may not be here in 5 years. I mean, both these guys are going to be put in a position next year where they have to win at a pretty good clip. I'm thinking that both coaches will probably have to win 8 games in 2025 to have a chance to coach these teams in 2026. So to me, it kind of equals out there. But yes, the timing is weird, the breaking of it. But yeah, I think that if you're Florida State, you can offset by this. Hey, yeah, he might be there one more year, but there's no guarantee after that. The issue is Florida can tell that kid the same thing. But yeah, I think it's important to point out that Tramell has been here for almost every home game, particularly once he was able to move around a little bit off that ankle injury. Or whatever, lower leg injury. I don't know what I'm going to say ankle.
It's an ankle.
Yeah. And then, of course, as far as we know, he has not been anywhere else. And it would be hard for a recruit in a cast or on a scooter to go unnoticed. I mean, everybody noticed Osman Crowma being on campus here last week. So I think it's going to be interesting. Listen, like I said, I've got 2 sources. One that's got a rooting interest in where Tramell goes, but he is tied into Florida Gator recruiting. And what we probably need to do next week is get our man from the Florida site. God, why is his name escaping me?
Jason.
Anyway, yes, Jason. We need to get Jason on here and have Jason talk a little bit about what he thinks is going on. We talked about doing that early on in the season. We just haven't done it yet. Listen. The bigger problem, Tribal Chief says he's not going to win next year. It looks like it's just this or worse. I bet my life on it. Well, first of all, I hope you're not right on the worst part, Tribal Chief, because that would be hard to
it can't get really much worse.
As hard as it is to wrap my head around that. All right, so Fish, you're taking off on us?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, hey, one more question if you got time, and we'll cut this thing short. The other news today that broke was that Florida State offensive tackle commit Danielle Pierre-Louis was going to go to Florida for their LSU game and do an unofficial visit. I think it's unofficial. I think it's unofficial
too because, well, I'll do some more digging to figure out if it's official or not.
So, Fish, what do you make on that?
Listen, these kids until Mike and their staff decide to make changes with these kids, they're going to continue to take visits. It just seems like they're the one program that these guys commit, and then it's like almost like they use it as a kind of like a placeholder until they find something better. This kid's a 3-star lineman. He's committed. He's a nice player, but once again, they got to tell this kid, listen, you got a spot. If you're going to take visits, you're committed, then good luck. We'll find somebody else. Like they've got to take a stronghold of this class and these guys because they're going to end up with nobody. I mean, they've got to put their foot down. I mean, this kid's not some 5-star elite lineman. They need linemen. If this kid wants to go take visits to Florida or some other school, then they need to tell him, listen, you're not committed to us. We're gonna give your spot to somebody else.
Yeah,
they need to be a little bit mean. They need to start kind of.
Listen, it's a business. These guys. Listen, we call it
business. It's a business for Florida State too.
Yeah, I'm just saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes in a business, you got. There has to be conditions in a business deal, right?
Yeah.
Like Gino Arianama said that we can talk about student and athlete all we want, but at the major college level in these major sports, it's time to throw the athlete out the student part out and just keep the athlete in, because this is pay for play, and that when you're negotiating an NIL deal, there needs to be stipulations with that. And I don't know how you enforce it, because you could very easily lose a kid, but this isn't recruiting anymore. This is all about leverage, and it's organized. It's free agency for high school kids.
Yeah, I just think there's certain kids, like, they have to understand, like, this kid is not some 5 or 4-star elite offensive lineman. No offense, but there's a dime a dozen of guys just like him. You want in, you got your spot. We're going to give you what you want, and that's it. Or we're going to move on. Like, I wouldn't mess around with a player like this. I mean, this isn't a kid that can come in and contribute right away. He's a project, and there's plenty of those guys. There's got to be kids that are willing to say, all right, I'm committed to your school. That's the only school I'm going to visit. It's amazing that every other school, even Auburn, is able to keep all these kids locked in. But Florida State has this problem of keeping guys committed and locked in once they pull the trigger. And I get it. There's NIL, there's this, that. Everybody else is dealing with the same rules.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, excuse me, with Pierre Louis, he was offered by Florida during his official visit here, and he did say that he was going to visit. Now, that was before he committed. So I don't know whether this is that visit that never got canceled,
why
commit?
Commit.
I don't know. It doesn't make it optically anymore. You think that? Well, we'll find out and obviously update on the boards when
either way, it's not great, right? Either way, it's not great.
It's not.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be a slow day, and it has not been. All right, Fish, man, have a great weekend. We'll see you
later, buddy.
Saturday night, right? You going to come join me Saturday night? Yeah. Listen, we thought it was going to be a slow day. Then the Napier news comes, followed by Tramell Jone, followed by Daniel Pierre Louis. So listen, we knew it was going to be a frenetic run to the early National Signing Day, and we'll see if Florida State can hang on to Tramell Jone. Like we said, we've heard different things, and I'm right now going to put my stock in what the non-biased opinion of that situation is, and that's right now he is still committed to Florida State, and he is basically waiting things out to see what happens with Mike Norvell's staff at the end of this year, which we'll have a good idea, and the season ends in 23 days. So we'll see what happens there, and hopefully we'll have some good news, and that Tramell will remain committed to Florida State. But certainly an interesting day. If you want to catch up on all of what we heard, please go to theosceola.com, and that is that news in particular is for subscribers only. We get a little bit more in detail about it, and give you some of the Fish's thoughts on Carter Smith, who he thinks would be a great prospect to replace Tramell Jone with if Tramell were to walk out of this class. And they got to get Carter on campus. That's the one big thing there. But we also have updated we have our scouting report on Notre Dame is up. We also have a list of the latest offers that have gone out to Florida State. They did offer a junior college receiver earlier this week, Jordan Scott, who is going to be taking an official visit to Florida State. I do not know whether it's Charleston Southern weekend or Florida weekend, but it's certainly one of the two. He is rated as the 33rd best player in the junior college level.
I believe it's the Charleston Southern game.
Charleston Southern game.
Yeah.
He is 6'7", about 215, and I'm trying to find some film on him so I can post that to that particular link. But you can go see the other 20. You can see the 2026 prospects that were offered. So Mike and his staff are still working on building for the future. And then, of course, we will have all our pregame coverage and postgame coverage at theosceola.com, and we will have our postgame show on here on Saturday night with former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva. And obviously, Fish and Nick, you're not going to be at the game, so you're welcome to join us. Misery possibly loves company, so come on.
I don't know. Listen. I take the it's not I don't want to call it a hedgehog approach, but I'm definitely the sit in a quiet room and kumbaya during all of this. Kind of accept it for what it is. I think I've told you this before, but every single week this team puts me through the 5 stages of grief. I mean, because it gets worse every single time for different reasons.
We know what they're good at.
Yes.
Putting you in the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah, that's about the only thing they're good at.
Yeah, you can help me talk Mark off the ledge if it goes as bad as we think it might.
You'll have to. I think if there's probably anybody on the Osceola staff that's taking it harder than us collectively, it's probably Mark and probably Jerry out of everybody. But
I think you're right about that. And thank God Mark is not boycotted yet.
This season, man, is really just. I mean, it's not over yet, and it feels like it's an eternity until it is actually over.
Yep.
But this collapse has been out of this world. Like I pray to God for the next program that, if there is a next program that could exceed this downfall, pray for those guys, because
it may exist out there, but I don't
not at this level.
Recall a program of Florida State stature going through something like this. And I think that's and listen, it'd be one thing if these were all 3-point losses and bad bounce of the ball, injuries everywhere.
It's how they look.
But it's they're non-competitive losses, and it reminds me of the first year we reinvented the Osceola in 2019, and which I believe was Willie's last year, and it was just such a hard program to cover. And of course, we had seen them the year before. We were not here as a organization, but I used to go to games with Jerry in 2018 and sit up there in the Champions Club because he and I both agreed the best place to watch the games from the end zone. And so anyway, yeah, it's been, as I think I put in our text thread, you just don't see this every day. And I've been around college football my entire life, and I can't recall anything like this. But listen, the good news is once you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is straight up. I mean, that's about the only way I know to look at it. And Florida State will probably likely end this year 2-10, potentially 3-9. But we'll see. Listen, stranger things have happened, but yeah, you're right. It's been a long year, and we've been here to cover it, and we will be here the next 3 weekends to cover it. And then I think, and listen, I think it's going to be. I think, as I've said, as I was on a radio show in Tampa this morning, and I said, listen, obviously, I think everyone's ready to put this season in the rearview mirror. But I said, I think if you're a Florida State fan, what you want to pay attention to find out what's going to happen with this program is what happens on the morning of December 1st through the evening of December 29th when the portal closes. Because obviously whatever changes are going to take place will likely take place in those 29 days and probably sooner rather than later. So, and that's really going to set Mike up for his long-term future at Florida State, and it's going to have a huge impact on Florida State's short-term future as a football program. So, Florida State will not be going to a bowl this year, that's for certain. But the December calendar is going to be vitally important for this program. And of course, we will be here covering it for you all through December. But please join us after the game on Saturday night on our Osceola YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button before you log off today, and then go to theosceola.com for all our practice reports, columns from this week, and obviously for our in-game coverage and post-game coverage on Florida State's game against Notre Dame. Nick, I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Take a good rest of your day. Have a I don't know what I'm trying to say. Try to enjoy it. You know,
I am.
Enjoy it.
All right, Nick. Have a good one, bud.
All right, later.